Hello there. I have made this video to address probably some tutorial issues that some players may have. Maybe they don't understand how the scaling works, maybe they just don't understand how I make the videos. Next video after this will be the format and how I actually structure my videos, but think of this as more of a basic tutorial to catch up to speed what I do. Usually I have to answer comments, and it takes quite a bit of time some days, answering some fairly basic questions. Am I right 100%? Probably not, but I can give me an 80% score on this, but no matter. You saw time cards, you know where to jump to if you have questions. But let's start from the beginning. Okay, so for my reviews, I will be doing as the stats you see here. You see I got most of my categories. I got strength, dexterity, intelligence, and faith at 50, but let's go over everything. So yeah, I got my covenant, got my level of 218, plenty of souls is what you use to level up. So pretty much the idea. Vitality increases your health, but you know, for a review it's not truly necessary, but for me playing the game and getting through 4 playthroughs, yeah. Atonements is how many slots you can have of spells, which you can see on the right side I have 3 currently, but I'll get into that later. Moving on from that, we got endurance, which increases equipment rate, your resistance to bleeding, and of course stamina. Okay, now for all that stats out of the way, we got strength, which is kind of needed to wield so many weapons out there. The more strength you have, the more powerful your blows, and some weapons will require it, as I mentioned. So yeah, and same thing can be said for dexterity, although dexterity is not strength-based, but usually skill-based weapons. Not really any more difficult to control, but the game requires it. These could be katanas, bows and arrows, etc. Resistance is a fairly useless stat in my opinion. It just boosts your overall defense, which everything else already does. At this point, it doesn't even do anything for me if we try to level up. So yeah, I'm not going to bother with resistance at all. And moving on from that, we got the magic, which is intelligence. I got at 50. So intelligence, which is related specifically to sorceries, well, requires a certain amount. The higher your intelligence, the stronger these sorceries will be. Simply put, I set the soft cap to 50. It can be stronger above that, but you get the majority of your power at 50. Now, same thing goes for faith, except faith does not do sorceries, it does miracles, which are more heal-based and support-based, but there are some offensive ones that have useful utilities. And humanity is not really a stat, it's something you just apply to yourself for, you know, better things to find shit. As you can see, and not to mention it increases resistance to curse, which is rare. So yeah. So you get your rough health there, you got stamina, all basic numbers. But yeah. Moving on from that, we got the equipment load. Now equipment load's been important because the heavier you are, the slower you move. So it works in pretty much about 25%ers. So I'm in the 25% and above range, going up to half. That's so you can freely move around and dodge freely. Anything lower than that, you move like the wind. Anything higher than that, you start getting a lot slower. You eventually get to the fat rolls, and then eventually can't roll at all, which I'll cover later in this video. So yeah, really important stuff there. But moving on from that, we got the overall damage for my equipment, which is the right and left hand weapons. Which you can see that by my equipment, I have one actual weapon equipped, a longsword, and then I have nothing in my right hand, which is only 20 damage, which doesn't change no matter how much strength or dexterity you have. It'll always be weak. Don't know why. But anyway, besides that, you can see in my left hand I got a shield, which doesn't actually have any damage potential unless it's in the right hand. But now, physical defense. You see I got a large amount of physical defense of 427, and then there's a bracket number of 171. Now I am led to believe that 171 is your base defense without any armor on. I believe so anyway. Maybe it's a scaling, it's never been properly explained. And I looked for information to clarify it for myself and didn't quite find anything. So that's the 98% of it I mean. Now you got strike, slash, and thrust. You kind of get the idea what these defenses are for. Slash weapons, flash weapons, and thrust weapons. And you got your magic defense, fire defense, and lightning defense. All self-explanatory beside that point. Alright, then we got poise. Poise is simply how much damage you can take before you stagger and get bumped around with weapons. Some weapons are really good at it, some weapons don't really do it at all. Your armor will drastically help the changes for you and help you with this. Bleed resistance is meaning the bleed stat will build up a bar consecutively when you're hit with bleed weapons. When it fills out, you'll take a huge chunk of damage loss. I believe it's around 50% of your health, or about 35%, around there. So yeah, best not to have that happen to you. So that's pretty hard to fix most of the time, but the next one, poison, it's a bit easier. Poison is the same idea, except when it gets filled up, you simply start taking... You get poison and you slowly lose in your health, though it's a lot more manageable and it can be fixed with items. And then there's Curse. When it's the same idea, but when the Curse bar fills up, you die. Yeah, not fun. Not fun at all. And the final stat is Item Discovery, which is kind of self-explanatory, but there is a bit of science to it. You start with very little Item Discovery, and you can get more. You can increase that by your amount of humanity and other items you equipped. It makes it easier to find stuff, which is a problem for me. Alright, so let's go over a couple other things. Next, I want to talk about weapon stats. But first, you can see that there's a lot of weapons. I might be doing this whole series for another damn year or longer. So yeah, there's a lot of weapons. And now I'm not only going to do weapons, I'm going to do everything. Shields included. Follow Catalyst as well. And not only the weapons, I'll be also doing the armor. Yes, the armor can be upgraded, and thus its can be viewed and scrutinied by yours truly. So yeah, I will just take a very base opinion and looking at armor, and it'll be short videos, usually consisting only 4 minutes, opposed to weapons might be around 9 minutes to go over it all, because armor doesn't have animation, only has stats and numbers. So yeah, and not to mention I'll also be doing a quick review on the magics themselves and giving them a base grade as well, so everything's under the sun here. Alright, now general movement. You can see here that this is the 50% range. I move around freely, I roll quite casually, it's the normal movement range. It's important. This is pretty much what you'll find majority players to have. But let's change that a little bit. Let's make ourselves quite a bit heavier, so I'll grab Smog's armor here, known for being quite heavy. You can see my equipment range goes up. It is now quite to that point now where I'll go above that 50% range. So you can see that it could be quite a problem. So for good measure, we'll put on also the helmet. Definitely above the 50% range. Now, my movement speed is it's hampered a little bit. I'm now in the infamous fat roll range. This is about 50% to 75% armor rating. So yeah, at this point you can still move around, you can still dodge, just the fat roll wise. Is still playable. Well, some players do this. I don't know sure why, maybe just not very good at dodging. Maybe it's their choice. But usually equipped it with giant great shields for a good effect. But you can take this even further. Well, I don't recommend taking it further. I don't recommend anyone taking it further, but sure, let's go full on ball broke here and take on everything. Everything with Smog, this entire heavy armor set. It's going to be fun reviewing with this thing equipped. So, as a moment, I can still move around with it, even with the full equipment set, but I don't really have any heavy weapons. Let's change that. Let's put a giant shield. It's very heavy. You can see now, I am not running anymore. I cannot run. You're only moving at walking speed. This is what I call the impossible weight limit. That's my attempt to roll right there. You cannot roll. You can only defend and walk. Sure, I've seen videos of people beat the game like this, but why would you? Why would you? Don't do that. So yeah, best always at least keep yourself in the 50 to 75% range. Always remember to keep yourself light. Alternatively, here's what it looks like under the 25% range, when you have almost no armor on. So you can see your running speed is amazingly fast. You're quite a bit faster, you can outrun your opponents. Not only that, you're dodging. Oh man, that dodging. You just freaking bolt away at amazing speed. But you gotta be good at that dodging or you'll get killed, because you have no armor. You still carry heavy shields and achieve this. So it's depending on your build and what your equipment are. Now let's talk about the weapon information. This is the important part for my reviews. Now we got a bunch of stats here on the weapon screen. We'll go through each one of these and you'll understand it more or less. So let's go over it now. You got the attack type, which you see is regular and thrust damage. So slash and thrust damage. This longsword does both. You'll see in the animations. Now, moving on from that, you got physical damage. Now, when it comes to damage, there's two types. You got the base damage, which is 80, and then you got about a bonus damage, as I call it, the attribute bonus, which is 71. It's what a lot of players call scaling, but the game calls it about, parameter bonus, so I call it bonus damage. Terminology, it's what I've always called it. Call it whatever you want. So yeah, so the higher your stats are, the better your bonus damage will be. So this one draws upon dexterity and strength at the same time, which combines my 50 into 71. It's on an upgraded weapon, so it's not particularly high yet. So yeah, if that's a very basic, very rough crash course on scaling. But pretty much it's pretty obvious. It's like all RPGs. Higher stats are, the stronger your stuff will be. It just, Dark Souls takes an extra step and actually makes it so that your weapons level up with you, sort of. Sort of. So you can take something like a longsword and you can use it the entire game, like I have. Why? Because this longsword's comfortable to use. So moving on from that, you got the basic damage, fire, magic, lightning, same rules when you get numbers. Critical. Critical now is a very keen number, is when you do a parry or sneak attack from behind, you'll instigate a critical, which is a really heavy amount of damage. It's not quite double damage, it's somewhere in the range. I have a hard time nailing the math on a critical, so higher number, the better. Okay, now for the parameter bonus. Simply put, this is the scaling I mentioned earlier. And then you got auxiliary effects, but we'll get on that later. First I want to talk about parameter bonus. You see, for parameter bonus, I had two stats. For strength and dexterity, I have a C, as you see there. Now, C is not a very high number, and there's worse. There's worse scaling out there, but C is really the base ones. So, get the idea. You got ball B, A, and I'm not sure. Does Dark Souls have S, or am I mixing that up? Besides the point. So yeah, the higher scaling, the better. And these scalings can get better as you level up your weapon. They will change. They will upgrade with you. Not every weapon will have good scaling at the end of the day, but they do level up. Unfortunately, in Dark Souls 1, you cannot infuse it with gems directly. Instead, I'll explain that process very shortly later in upgrades. But let's move on. Now, we got another stat over here, is defense. So you're probably thinking, why would you defend with a fucking longsword? What the fuck's wrong with you? Well, sometimes it happens. So, oh shit, your shield got broken, you forgot to equip it, you're already in battle, so what do? Well, you can double hand the weapon and you can guard. Not preferable, but it's good in emergency. Just don't rely on it. It's pretty terrible. So, for longsword, as an example, you can see you got base numbers here. These are percentages, as you see damage reduction percentage above it. So physical is 50%. Magic is an abysmal 10%. Fire and lightning are at a low 35%. Then we have a funny number there. Stability. Now, stability is based on how much ball damage your stamina will take, because when you guard, your stamina takes a hit. Stamina will regenerate, but you get the idea. So, a longsword is very crappy for guarding, where opposed to a shield to be much better. So yeah. So with that said, it's pretty much besides the point that you shouldn't really use your weapons. There's some weapons that are decent, but let's just go a direct comparison. I got this 10 blood shield here, and it's double the stability. Now let's see what that actually looks like. It's not what you think it is. Here's me guarding the sword. That's a heavy strike from that opponent. He takes half my stamina, and before long he breaks it and I stagger. Alright, let's take a shield. That's a light blow. Very little stamina, as you see. And that's another light blow. We're waiting for another heavy one. There's the heavy one. And boom. Only a quarter or about 1/3. A significant difference. So yeah, keep that in mind. Now let's talk about armor a bit. Now when I talk about armor, I'm going to show you this screen. And it's going to say your base damage and you have various other types of defense, slash, etc. Along with your poise. But the only significant important thing here in armor is going to be the weight and the durability. Durability is important, but usually in most cases it's excellent. But yeah, all the stats are going to be pretty much the same throughout all of the reviews, and I'll cover it accordingly. Now, going back to here, we got the auxiliary effects, which I didn't talk about. You got the bleed, you got the all the poison, and you got occult and everything else. And not to mention you got damage values. So occult and well, divine, I should say, it was what it was. Divine lets you kill evil enemies, does more damage to them. Occult lets you harm more holy enemies with more damage. Those numbers won't pop up too terribly often until you upgrade it. But now I want to talk about damage values. You can see here that's something I don't like about the game. You probably noticed that I've been jumping between a level 15 longsword and my standard non-leveled one. You see, okay, damage goes up, that's pretty nice. But you probably also noticed the scaling is also showing an increase. It's blue. That's what I don't like about Dark Souls. That scaling is classified as a C+, and they don't tell you that. That bugs me. So yeah, moving on from that, let's go on to magic. Magic. It's ranged weaponry. It's not quite a bow and arrow, and it has limited uses per, when you're running around. But it is quite powerful. Generally, it's a lot more powerful than all your physical weapons, in the end. But it can be circumvented by shields and other resistances, so it's not always the best thing for PvP, though it's incredibly effective against someone who doesn't know how to guard against it. So as you notice that my attunement slots say 4, but I only have 3 items. And that's because my Sunlight Spear uses 2 slots. So you gotta keep in mind, just because you have a number of slots doesn't mean you can hold all the magic. But is the Sunlight Spear worth it? Well, fucking shit, I think it's worth it. But now you see, wait, you can't cast this. Wait, that's a catalyst. Correct. As I mentioned earlier in the video, there's 2 types of magic. You got miracles and sorceries. The staffs, the catalysts, are meant for sorceries. And of course you got the talismans and what? For miracles. Simply put. So yeah, pretty simple, just don't mix them up. Now, when it comes to miracles, as I mentioned earlier, they're mainly dependent on support to healing. There are some dedicated offensive ones like the Sunlight Spear. And you're probably thinking, damn, I just threw all my Sunlight Spears, what are you gonna do now? Well, fucking shut up and listen. Now, you only have limited use of these until you go to a bonfire and they refresh. Probably already knew that, but there's probably one miner out there who didn't. Probably didn't pay attention. It's all in an effort to explain all this. Now, for other magics, such as the White Dragon Breath, that is a sorcery. Always check beforehand before you equip. You might want to get confused in the middle of a fight. So, you get the idea. I'll explain again. Catalysts are for sorceries. Talismans are for miracles, or chimes, depending on which Dark Souls you have. Now let's go on to animations, and some people like to say, why do you fucking go on about animations so much? I got that question before too many times. Animations are important. They are very important. Animations are kind of like the framework to a weapon. A longsword is very different from the great sword of Artorias. You saw me swing around a longsword. Now, can you tell me with honesty that a longsword and this greatsword are the same animations? They behave the same, they're the same movement speed. No, they're not. If you say otherwise, you're a moron. Clearly. So, yes, you can see that animations are very keen different. You can see the charge attack or the power attack for the Artorias greatsword has a delay in it. That's a con. That's a freaking disadvantage. Where the longsword is much quicker. Your opponent cannot get in there quick enough to hit you in most cases without getting hit themselves. There's clearly a reason why I talk about animation so much. Alright. So, going over animations, you got the basic attacks. Pretty plain. These are your quickest attacks normally. Then you got the power attack. So yeah, basically it's a slower attack, sometimes it follows up, sometimes only one attack. Sometimes it can be mixed with normal attacks even. Then you got the light rolling attack, which is fairly quick. And of course you got the rolling, but heavy attacks don't actually add anything. I'll show them regardless, so people can see it across the point, and see if there is anything or not. Then you got the light step attacks, or step back attacks. I sometimes word that funny. Of course there's no power version to this, but I'll show it anyway. So everyone knows when I cover a weapon. Then you got the plunge attack, which is pretty much a dart forward and stab. It's rather powerful. Okay. And that's all the main attacks. There is a sprint attack, but I find that attack is rarely used by anyone other than the first strike, which often isn't the best one. Now you also have the two-handed animations. where in most Dark Souls it's not the wisest thing, but in Dark Souls 2 it does actually nearly double the strength of your weapon normally. Alright, so you can see you have all the basic moves, but it's the same moves, but they're all a little bit different. That's the idea, the two-handed attack. It's stronger, but you're ultimately a little bit slower. Now let's talk about shields a bit. Shields. They're going to become your best friend in Dark Souls, especially in the beginning. Especially in the beginning. They save you from danger. But what else can they do? Well, they can do a couple things. Most important thing for shields is parrying. This is what a parry animation looks like. When do you parry? The exact moment the blade makes contact with your character and causes damage. Yeah, that's parrying. So people who don't know how to do it, that's the moment you do it. Can everything be parried? No. Magic cannot be parried, at least not until later editions. And large weapons normally can't be parried. Now you're probably thinking, is there any purpose to having a sword in your right shield, or you mean your right hand? No. You can't bash people with it, but why would you? It's a terrible weapon. There's literally no point to this. Our Dark Souls may make some point to it, but there really isn't. In Dark Souls 1, don't ever equip a shield in your right hand. I will do it for review purposes, but that's about it. You can see the damage is absolute shit. The scaling is just not there. It's horrible. Okay. Now about that parrying. Back to that. So parrying is basically it's the facet of get good in Dark Souls. Once you master parrying, you pretty much control your opponents. You can let them hit you. It's easy. So it's not as difficult as a lot of people make it out to be. It's just getting used to your enemies. No one learns it overnight. You gotta look at your enemies. You gotta defend on them. You gotta look at the moment that their animations, their attacks connect with you. Every opponent has a little bit of different variations in their attacks. Every opponent. Some rely on throwing items. Other ones will equip axes and etc. Now let's talk about archery. Now when it comes to archery, well, it's the easiest route in Dark Souls, PvE wise. PvP, don't even try, you will lose. I've never seen anyone use a bow and arrow successfully alone. So for bows and arrows you got two different types. Well, it's a crossbow and bolt, and then you got bow and arrow. Let's start with bow and arrows first. Now the stats screen looks very similar, except the very first thing on the stats is different. It's a shot range. Now this number is very arbitrary, and I'll prove that in very shortly here. But yeah, otherwise it's going to be a lot similar to a review like a weapon, other than the range of the bow coming into effect. So yeah, pretty simple. There's a lot of different types of bows. Some do dedicated magic, some of them do a lot more damage, but there's also different types of arrows that augment the damage. I didn't crit a whole lot at the moment as a review of this video, but there's a lot of different types. Now, moving on from that, we also got crossbows. Crossbows are a little bit different from bow and arrows. Now, they got some base damage, but you can see they don't scale, at least not naturally. There's no parameter bonus, but somehow it scales. I never had this properly explained to me, or I don't think anyone has properly explained it at all, where that bonus comes from. But anyway, let's look at animations. So bow and arrow, you try to attack with it, it defaults to two-handed. You have no choice. You gotta use two-handed. There's no one-handed bow and arrow. It's not. Is there even a way to wield a bow with one hand? But anyway, it's quick, it's nimble. You shoot, it fires. Pretty simple. You can do it quite rapidly too on a small bow like this. Use the wrong arrows, and your character won't use them. That's me trying to use great bow arrows, so it doesn't work. Now, next, I want to talk about crossbows. Crossbows are a little different, because you see, it shoots, it reloads, but wait, there's more. A giant benefit with the crossbow is you can use it with one hand. I've seen a lot of players use it as a sneak attack. As your opponent's running away, shoot him the crossbow with a lightning one. It often will finish him off. So yeah, the bow and arrow you cannot use with one hand, but however, you can manually aim it. With a crossbow, you cannot. You can only fire from the hip. So with the manual aim, you get a lot of freedom of aim and availability, even hitting foes well outside your lock-on range. However, there's a problem. See that reticule? It's pretty much a little horse shit. The reticule is a simple guide on where it will land, but you can see there's a problem with it. It's never centered. This bugs me to no end, and this is not in just one Dark Souls, and in every Dark Souls. It's like the reticule is never ever fixed. It always aims slightly off to the right, ever so slightly, by about a few centimeters. But yeah, it doesn't matter what range. You can see most of the time it gets worse as you get further away. But let me just, you can see here that's just terrible. So you're probably thinking, okay, what range does this reticule actually work? Let me show you. It's astounding. So you see at this point blank range, oh, it's a little bit to the left now. So we'll back up, fire again. Oh, close, close. Even closer. And boom. It's pretty much in the center right there. What's that? About 2 meters. What a fucking joke. So yeah. Bows and arrows. Now going on to other bows and arrows, you got 2 major types. You get the standard ones, then you got the great ones. There's only 2 great ones in Dark Souls. The Dragon Slayer and then the freaking the Gauss one. I think I pronounced his name wrong, but it's besides the point. So, great arrows, they're giant. They're heavy. They do a lot more damage, and they have a lot of poise damage. You ever see someone trying to guard against one of these arrows that might be heavily staggered. But they also these arrows take time to prep, and generally are slow. Alright, so let's go about another thing. Let's see a shot range. You can see your shot range. Let's go with something with 50. Why 50? Well, because the Dragon Slayer Great Bow claims the same thing. Now remember when I said that number is pretty arbitrary? I'm about to prove that right here. So we got the longbow. Let's see. Let's take a good long target around the mountain face here. Get as far back as I can. A tree? Maybe. Let's see. Not quite enough. Not enough drop. Let's see what against that mountain face right there. So at that point you see my arrow drops a decent amount. About a good foot. So that's pretty much the range. That's the edge of the range for this longbow. Now, equipping a Dragon Slayer Great Bow. Remember, same number at 50. Let's prep one of the arrows. We'll let loose. And no. Let's try that again. And let loose again. No drop at all. These are both rated the same number, 50. So I'm not sure why they use the same number. If I not just increase it, it's frustrating. So yeah, Dark Souls stat screens aren't perfect. That's why I'm here to review stuff. Now, when it comes to upgrading, I'm going to be pretty much sacrificing my time and life to do this for you. Why I'm making a big deal of that? I'm going to max out every weapon and show you every different type of weapon what it could be. So you just level up a weapon casually. That's a standard reinforcement. That's only one type of damage. You seem to forget we got lightning, we got magic, we got fire, and there's even more than that. There's a lot of different types out there. Now I'm going to be showing you all of them at their maximum damage value. I won't be showing you each time that they're upgraded. I'll be only showing you pictures of what they look like upgraded. Because otherwise my videos will be from 10 minutes to fucking 25 minutes. So no one wants to sit there watching this screen all day. So yeah. Simply put, it's going to take a lot of time. But in the end, you'll have your answers to questions, because a lot of these you lose some materials, and sometimes those materials are incredibly rare. Alright, and I think that just about covers it. Sorry the video took so long, but trying to explain everything, even at a rushed value, still takes time. I tried to explain it quickly and the key things. I didn't give you a full tutorial. I gave you the tutorial to pretty much understand what I'm doing in my reviews. Alright, with that said, thank you for watching. See you guys in the next videos.